Hello, and welcome to the Edifice of Trust podcast. The Edifice of Trust podcast is a thoughtful discussion of today's current events from the perspective of America's founding principles. Hello, everyone. All the pundits and talking heads seem to be opining about the recent publication of the 2025 National Security Strategy of the United States of America. It is the clearest expression of Donald Trump's views on foreign policy, although it was probably drafted by J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller, and it is a clear departure from previous published strategies. Most analysts focus on the harsh criticism of Europe in the document, but a review shows changes all across the globe. NSS 2025 starts out with an unapologetic statement that the strategy will be based on President Trump's America First policies. The strategy is intended to answer three questions. 1. What do we want? 2. What resources do we have to get what we want? And 3, what strategy will best use our resources to get what we want? Other nations likely have the same three questions. The only difference is the resources that we have that others don't. The commonest word in the list of things the Trump administration wants is most. They want the world's most powerful, lethal, and technologically advanced military, the most robust and credible and modern nuclear deterrent, the strongest, most dynamic and innovative and most advanced economy, the most robust industrial base, the most robust, productive, and innovative energy sector, the most scientifically and technologically advanced and innovative country. The Trump administration wants the most of everything. The principles on which this strategy are based are not the principles normally associated with America. There is no focus on liberty, democracy, or the rule of law. The principles enunciated by the document include national interest, peace through strength, non-intervention, realism, primacy of nations, balance of power, and fairness. These principles evoke a vision of the era of great powers and mercantilist economic warfare. Based on those principles, the strategy proposes radical changes to U.S. priorities around the world. A top priority is to end mass migration, and the document cites the enduring wisdom of granting citizenship, quote, only rarely to foreigners, who also have to meet demanding criteria, unquote. I guess that means we will have to take down the plaque of Emma Lazarus's poem from the Statue of Liberty. America's world leadership is changed to burden shifting and burden sharing by other countries. The document emphasizes the non-intervention in the affairs of other nations and asserts that regional powers should take on more responsibility for security in their region, otherwise known as a sphere of influence of a regional great power. In this instance, non-intervention must be interpreted as saying that the form of government and that the government's treatment of its citizens should not impact our relationship with that country. The U.S. sphere of interest is the Western Hemisphere, and the strategy announces the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, similar to the Roosevelt corollary of 1904. The corollary envisions a hemisphere controlled economically and militarily by the United States, where non-hemispheric competition is excluded and where the U.S. diplomats are mandated to oppose, quote, detrimental outside influences while simultaneously applying pressure and offering assistance to partner countries to to protect our hemisphere. This is clearly an interventionist policy, but such intervention would occur only in the interest of America first and not be related to the civil rights or treatment of citizens in the intervened country. The document does not view Russia as a threat to U.S. interests, but rather primarily a European problem. This is because Europe falls within Russia's Eurasian sphere of influence, and the Russian existential threat to Europe arises because of European weakness and its inability to defend itself. Russian President Putin has declared that the NSS 2025 is aligned with Russia's vision. There is no mention of Russia's aggression or of Ukraine's brave defense against the Russian aggressor, but only of post-hostilities reconstruction. The Wall Street Journal has reported separately in a podcast titled Make Money, Not War, about the deal-making machinations between Kirill Dmitriev, the head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, as well as Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, a real estate tycoon that the president has known since the 1980s. Xi Jinping was probably not as happy as Putin with NS 2025. President Xi has been pushing for the U.S. to modify its position on Taiwan to specifically oppose independence. But the document states clearly that, quote, the United States does not support any unilateral change to the status quo in the Taiwan Strait, unquote. NSS 2025 does a better job of outlining the security challenges in the region, noting Taiwan's strategic importance in the first island chain. But it is also clear that the Trump administration considers the principal challenge of China to be economic. The document also calls for regional partners to take on greater responsibility for security in the region. The document emphasizes the growing economic importance of the Indo-Pacific region, which at least partly explains its stance on Europe. The national security strategy has been hailed on the right as only common sense. This document is not a modification of U.S. strategy, but a complete realignment of the world order, and a realignment much favored by Russia and China. It is true that the American-led rules-based world order that existed since World War II was showing its age and was badly in need of repair. NS 2025 does not propose reforms, but rather a completely different world order. But it is not a new world order, but an old world order. It is an updated version of the 18th century balance of autocratic great powers backed by a mercantilist economic system, giving them advantage over lesser powers. This was the system the American Revolution intended to overthrow. America was declared, quote, Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new order for the age. And although the American Republic did not work out exactly as the founders intended, and we made many mistakes along the way, it was the principles and ideals of the founders that made America exceptional. I hate it when Trump's right. He was right about China, and he is right about the debilitated condition of Europe. But he is wrong about how to solve those problems. China is not just an economic threat, but a military and potentially existential threat. America's interest and Russia's interest in the debilitated condition of Europe are not in alignment. This is a security strategy more appropriate for the Bourbons or the Habsburgs or the Romanovs. There is no city on the hill. There is no new order for the age. President Trump, along with J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller, don't really understand what made America truly great in the first place. At its core, NSS 2025 is un-American. Thanks for watching. Links to source material used in preparing this podcast can be found on my website, www.edificeoftrust.com.